Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a Nobel Prize-winning discovery, and it's all about how our bodies stay clean from the inside out. Seriously, this is a process that's happening in trillions of your cells, like right this second.
Okay, let's kick things off with a number that's just wild. If you're a person who weighs around 60 kilos, that's about 132 pounds, your body is making and breaking down roughly 240 grams of protein every single day. That's over half a pound. And the craziest part? Most of it gets recycled to build brand new, healthy proteins. I mean, our entire existence depends on this amazing balancing act. So, you gotta wonder, right? This constant cycle of breakdown and renewal, it brings up a massive question. What kind of machinery inside our cells can possibly handle this enormous, nonstop cleanup job? And maybe even more importantly, how in the world does it know what to toss out and what to save? Well, for decades, scientists knew something like this had to be going on. They could see the results, the evidence was there, but they just couldn't see how it worked. The actual mechanism? It was a total mystery. So, scientists gave this process a name, autophagy. It's Greek for self-eating, which is pretty metal, right? They could see that cells were somehow wrapping up their own junk in these little membrane sacs and then shipping them off to a recycling center called the lysosome. But for years, that's all they had. The whole thing was just a complete black box. And that's where our story really kicks off. It took one incredibly curious scientist, someone who was willing to look where nobody else was, to finally crack open that black box and show us what was really going on. And this is the guy, Yoshinori Ohsumi. Back in the early 90s, he decided to tackle this super complex problem by looking at something really, really simple: baker's yeast. The stuff you make bread with? His thinking was, hey, if I can figure out how it works in yeast, maybe, just maybe, it'll tell us something about our own cells. Okay, and Ohsumi's idea here was just brilliant, absolutely genius. He used a special strain of yeast, one that was missing the enzymes it needed to actually break stuff down in its recycling center. Then he starved the cells. Why? Because that's what triggers this whole cleanup process. And since the little cellular trash bags, these things called autophagic bodies, couldn't get broken down, they just piled up. They got so big that for the first time ever, you could actually see them with a regular light microscope. So then, when Ohsumi and his team took a look with a much more powerful electron microscope, wow, this is what they saw. Not just a blob, but a dynamic, incredibly organized process, and just stunning detail. These images were the smoking gun. They were undeniable proof of how autophagy worked, showing a cell literally, systematically eating parts of itself. So here's the key takeaway, right? This wasn't just some random demolition job. No way. What Ohsumi had uncovered was this precise, elegant, you could almost call it a sophisticated piece of molecular engineering, something that's been perfected over millions of years of evolution. All right, so let's break down how this machine actually works. It all starts with a double membrane sac. Think of it like a bag starting to form. This thing, called an isolation membrane, it grows and expands, swallowing up all the cellular junk. We're talking old proteins, damaged parts, you name it. Then it seals itself up into a nice little sphere called an autophagosome. And the final step? It merges with the lysosome, where these super powerful enzymes just go to town, breaking everything down into basic building blocks the cell can use again. Total recycling. But here's a question. How does the cell control this so perfectly? I mean, with such incredible precision? Well, later research figured out a key secret. Turns out the machinery that builds this little trash bag, the autophagosome, is actually sensitive to shape. Just like the quote here says, it's drawn to these highly curved membranes. And this ability to sense curves gives the cell amazing control. It basically focuses the whole process right on the growing cup-shaped edge of that autophagosome. It's a really simple but totally elegant solution that stops the machinery from just randomly munching on other healthy flat parts of the cell. It makes sure the cell only eats exactly what it's supposed to and exactly when it's supposed to. And this is just a perfect example of how one fundamental discovery made in a humble little yeast cell can completely revolutionize how we understand our own bodies and our health. Because as it turns out, the genes that run this whole show are incredibly ancient. They're what we call conserved across evolution. Those 15 essential autophagy genes Ohsumi first found in yeast, well, we have nearly identical versions in our own cells. The exact same fundamental machinery is whirring away inside every single one of us right now. So once Ohsumi found the genes, it was like he handed the entire scientific community the keys to the kingdom. They could finally study autophagy in humans. And his discoveries? They just opened the floodgates. As you can see from this chart, it led to an absolute explosion of research into what autophagy does for our health and what happens when it goes wrong. And what we know now is staggering. Autophagy is fundamental to so many things. It helps us survive when we're starving. It cleans out junk proteins, which helps slow down parts of the aging process. It fights off invading bacteria and viruses. It even helps suppress tumors. It really is a cornerstone of our health. So it follows that if this super important cleanup system breaks down, the results can be pretty devastating. When autophagy is disrupted, it's linked to a whole host of diseases. We're talking things like Parkinson's, type 2 diabetes, and even some cancers. That's why there's so much intense research happening right now to develop drugs that can actually target this process and hopefully treat these conditions. And for pulling back the curtain on this fundamental, life-sustaining process, Yoshinori Ohsumi's truly paradigm-shifting research was awarded the 2016 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, a prize he absolutely deserved. Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought to end on, doesn't it? If we can truly understand and maybe even learn to control our cell's own internal recycling program, we might be on the cusp of brand new ways to treat disease, fight aging, and live longer, healthier lives. The key might have been inside us all along, in the body's ultimate recycler.